Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today I am joined by Sam Williams.
Hello.
Sir Bruce Fitzpatrick.
Hello.
And because last time he moaned that I didn't give him a big enough intro.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Come on, boys.
Happy birthday, Tom Mills.
Happy birthday to you. That's as good as you get, mate.
At least someone cares about you, eh, Tom?
Absolutely. Well, it's none of you buggers. So here we go. We got curator of TrottieGolf, media megastar, head of global marketing for TaylorMade. Is that big enough?
And
That's it. I'm not a singer, that's for sure. So what's happening, boys? I was actually saying it rained here at the weekend, believe it or not, when I went out to play golf on Sunday. I'm turning into one of those middle-aged men who has their usual Sunday spot, early doors, get out there, 6:30 on the tee, couple of balls, off we go. And it rained for the first hole, and then I proceeded to play some lovely golf from there on. And I'm advancing towards +1 on this GIN handicap system, which is a nice feeling, although it actually means that you're in real terms, UK system, about 14.
What is the GIN? Can someone explain that?
You talked about this last time. What is GIN?
So I'm learning all the time because one of the best things...
mispronunciation of gin is why my mind keeps telling me.
I tell you what, I was fancying a nip of it at like 7:10 in the morning, thinking, what am I doing here? But no, basically, global handicap system or something. I mean, you boys might know the exact breakdown, but you put in 20 scores, and then I think it takes your best 7 or 8, and I'm still getting my head around it. And one of the best things ever when I was a kid was you have 5 holes left at wherever you were playing, and probably really poor mental preparation based on the amount of stuff I've read since, but you'd be like, okay, well, if I can par this, birdie that, par that, I'll make my buffer zone on my handicap. And it was a big deal, wasn't it? And you always used to drive towards that and look at competition standard scratch that the UK listeners will know about. Anyway, fast forward, you have this GIN thing. So you get 20 scores, and then you take an average, I think, of your best 8, which already, if anyone...
so it is WHS then, so that is the World
Handicap. Okay.
Got you, right.
Well, if World Handicap System are listening, though, average of 8 scores, you need to be taking the average, I think, of like 15 or 16 scores, to be honest, because you can move your handicap significantly one way or the other. But I've got my head around it now, and I realise that I need to be scoring consistently par, under par, in order to move this thing, because there's a couple of rounds in there where, you know yourselves, you get waffly and you're hanging out with the people you play, you're not really thinking about it. Before you know it, you've shot 3-4 over and you're like, oh, well, whatever. But it stays in there for 20 rounds, effectively. So you need to hustle, basically. So I'm now an antisocial golfer who tries all the time until the very end, which is, isn't that, like, that's what you're meant to do.
And how did that work out for you, Trotty?
Well, like I say, I hustled to the end, managed to not break any clubs, not tell anyone what I truly thought of them, and we managed to play all the way to the Afish birdie. So I was stoked, absolutely pumped.
Brilliant.
Red numbers.
Fantastic.
Like
exactly.
It.
So am I right in thinking you don't have designated competitions as such, or rather you can hand in scorecards as long as you're sort of nominating them as, you know, you're going out and you're going to put the ball in the hole on every hole. That can count in this sort of best 8 of last 20.
That's a good call out. Right? So you are meant to put in every score you play. So every time you play, you're meant to put it in. Now, you meet this wide range of golfers, though. The guy who puts in every score he plays, fair enough. The guy who only puts in scores if he enters a club competition. The sandbagger. I meet so many sandbaggers. I play with this one guy, he shoots like 65 the other day. I'm like, what's your handicap? He's like, oh yeah, I'm a +1. I'm like, mate, plus, really? He's like, well, you know, I need to win the member guest every now and again, otherwise no one will be my partner. And member guests over here are a huge thing.
They're massive.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Play with this other guy. He hammers me, 5 and 4, hammers me. And I'm like, what's your handicap? He's like, oh, I'm a 4. you ain't a 4, mate. I mean, you're definitely not a 4. And he's like, well, member guest again. So you got the guy who's the member guest guy. So it's a funny one, but yeah. And then there's guys who just don't play competitions, and then guys who give themselves like 8-foot putts and stuff like that. Oh yeah, give me that one. So it's 4 feet of break off the left. Give me that one. But you can obviously play. I think it'd be good for juniors that are out there all the time, and you put every score in. But obviously, all these big competitions, US Am, British Am, US college scholarships, European tournaments for the kids, they're going to weed out, aren't they? But I think what you're going to see is back in the day when I was trying to play in those things, like +1 got in. I think now +4 might get in, and +4 will be the new +1. So at the end of the day, it's not like I'm a good player because I'm approaching a +1. No, I'm just a UK 3. You know what I mean?
That was the difference, wasn't it? Like you can, when you're inside that category 1 status and you're kind of 5 or below or whatever, all of a sudden that can quite quickly translate to scratch. We've even got one of our fellow podcasters here, Sir Bruce. Now, ding, 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 down to scratch. Although to be fair, I will say it is well deserved. He put on a bit of a stripe show in Scotland for us. But you said bit anticlimactic almost.
Yeah, it was a bit strange because, my brother and I have been pretty competitive from a young age with it. We were always kind of looking forward to getting to scratch as quite a sort of symbolic moment, really. And so to do it in a kind of technical way rather than going out and shooting a score, like from not handing in a scorecard, and all of a sudden you're off a much lower handicap, it's a bit weird. So. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the same for everyone, isn't it? But
where do you go with that now? Are you going to set like new targets now? Because I'm with you, and it is a symbolic thing. And I honestly, do you know what I think it is? I think it's a generational thing. Because my old man would always be like, "Oh, you're off scratch, you're off scratch, you're off scratch." It's like, well, I play now, being so much further on with so many good players, ex-tour players, tour players, and they're like on this world handicap thing, +6, +5, +3s.
Yeah.
And occasionally, if you're playing well, you can get in the mix. And I'm sort of stood there thinking, like, sadly, and I don't want to piss on your chips, but I think scratch is like, it's kind of like moving on. And it's like, where do you go now with your own game to be like, what's the new target? Because you've done it and you say it's anticlimactic, fantastic, but where are you going to go? How are you going to get better, and what do you want to get to? What's the new goal?
Well, exactly, yeah. And I think that's how increasingly it becomes about measuring stuff you've won, really. So, like, I've won my home club championship. I'd love to do that again. I've won, a couple of other amateur things here and there. And that, to me, seems like the only way you can now measure these things, really, because, as you say, handicaps just become such a bizarre system where, a scratch from 30 years ago, they were like, apparently in the UK 30, 40 years ago, you could count the number of scratch players on one hand, essentially, and you had to go and do 5 scores away from your home club, which I think is absolutely key. I think the best sign of a really good player is someone who can go and shoot level par around a course they've never seen before. And, added to which, when we talk about there, people who can just essentially go and hand in a card and maybe be a little bit unscrupulous and hand in cards where they've just shot the lights out, and then maybe not hand in the cards where they weren't playing so good or they wanted to go out and just work on some stuff, which is fine. All of a sudden they're off what seems like an artificially low handicap judged by the standards of a few years ago. So to me, it just becomes about, I guess, playing in events and trying to win things, really. But
I'm telling you now, you are my type of golfer mentality, and I guarantee you and me never need to pair up to play a member guest in the United States, because we will come dead last. But that is, I completely agree. That's the mentality you should have. And I think before we transition to technology and persimmon woods and talking about other stuff, because I think the reason you had so few people off scratch is because of where the technology was. I mean, those persimmon woods, I don't know if you've tried to hit them. You've got to be a baller, like an absolute baller. But before we get there, Tom, birthday. I mean, what did you celebrate for it? What did the lads do for you?
Well, a few weeks ago, they took me to Scotland, and we did play with some persimmon woods, actually. And
Sam, we went one better.
Yeah,
we did hickories. Yeah. We did hickories, Trotty.
Nice. I've never tried hickory.
Yeah, he couldn't keep it on the planet. Don't do it. It'll break your heart. It'll ruin a nice 5 days in Scotland. Yeah.
It was like watching Sam return to being a beginner again. It was brilliant. It was the best gift I've ever had.
Do you have to wait longer at the top, and do you have to really lag it?
Yeah, coming in steep wasn't working. Yeah, spaghetti al dente was the phraseology used in Gullen or wherever we're staying by chap that was coaching there. But I can guarantee you now, getting in hideously steep on the ball was not the approach. I just couldn't keep the thing on the planet. It was going, almost at right angles, even with the driver, which was. Yeah, it's chronic, really hard, but good fun around Musselburgh, oldest golf course in the world.
I liked it, actually.
Yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I thought it was really nice.
Well, you were on cloud 9 because you just brought Kilspindy to its knees with a 65 in the morning. Bruce had severed the spine of this course in Scotland. Trotty, honestly, it was something to watch.
But asking about my birthday present specifically is the fact that I get to watch the Masters on the week of my birthday, which is. It never happened, never going to happen again. So that's really interesting. I mean, segueing quite nicely. What are what's the feelings about doing the Masters in a November?
I think it's been talked about for a long time, right? From this is from the tour player, and I'll answer it first, boys, because I'm on a flow here, as you can tell. It's early for me, but I think it's exciting for sure. I think there's a different way of preparation. I mean, everyone's talking about Bryson. The tour hasn't seen Bryson play for 2 weeks. Obviously, Dustin gets the COVID positive test. He disappears off the face of the earth. I think that's going to have some positives for sure. The fact that he's had 2 weeks break, then he comes out, finishes top 5 last week. Hideki's playing great. So, he's got a new coach, which is what people don't know that about him.
Who's he working with?
Yeah, that's...
I actually don't know, because his handler guy, who we call Panda-san, the legend of a guy, Toshi Panda-san, says to me, new coach. And I was like, okay, cool. And this is the greatest betting insider in the history of the PGA Tour. I can walk up to Panda-san and be like, Panda-san, Hideki this week? And he's like, no, Chris-san. And then you go up to him and be like, Panda-san, Hideki this week? And he goes, yes, Chris-san. And he wins. And he never gets it wrong, ever. The finest better ever. Just
we've
tremendous.
got a chance here to prick some ears up to Matsuyama, because coming into this last week, I think yesterday, shot lowest round of his career, didn't he? Bogey 363, led the field strokes gained tee to green on Sunday. And I didn't realise this until today, but only 3 players have made more birdies at the Masters in the last 5 years than Matsuyama. So clearly quite likes it around there.
All I'm saying to you is I said to him last week, they were on the truck last week in Houston, and they were grinding the soul of UDI. And I want to say this, because if anyone's listening that follows me on Instagram, if I had my own podcast, this would have been the subject of the podcast. Just because I post a picture of a UDI, which is a driving iron, that has a little bit of grind on it, it doesn't mean I'm manipulating the bounce. The amount of times I've had to answer that this week, read the damn caption. The caption tells you what I've done. So what are you commenting for? But anyone who follows, I love people following, but it is getting a little frustrating. He grounded this thing just to change his hand position. The guy's very finicky. He's like you boys with Hickory. But I basically said to him, as Panda was on the truck, I go, Panda-san, let me see the UDI. And he goes, yeah. I said, cool. Look, what's he doing? I said, this is weird. Then I asked the question that everyone's asked me, changing the bounce. And he goes, no, Chris-san. Position of the hands at impact. He goes, Hideki has a new coach. I said, okay, cool. I said, Hideki for the Masters? And he looks at me and he's scared to say it. And he goes, maybe, Chris-san, maybe. So I was like,
you heard it here first.
Get the bet on. So, and that was before he even went out and played well at Houston. So, I mean, what's it like? What's the talk like? Everyone's got their eyes on Augusta. Everyone's talking about Bryson. Everyone is on there building longer length driver shafts. And when I say everyone,
are they all into it now?
Well, my boss, who, even if he listens to this, then we're going there. Someone as a media guy on the truck last week. What's happening? And I sort of look at my boss to think, how much do I say? How much do I not say? Because you can cause a hoo-ha, a week out. And he's like, so I was like, okay, fair enough. Dustin trying longer, probably not going to go there. Rory trying longer, probably not going to go there. all in attempts to catch speed, gain speed. But when you get into the 190 ball speed that these boys are in, which is, it's like, it's so quick. It's so quick. But when you get in there, so say that they cruise around 184, they're gaining 6 miles an hour. So that's going to be 10 to 12 yards roughly. Okay. Maybe a bit more if you get the perfect launch and spin on it. But they can't, what they're struggling to do is go whack, whack, whack driver, grab a little wedge, and then play a field wedge shot. They're struggling to do that. Now, is Bryson going to figure that out? Because he's going over 200 on the ball speed, but then he's got these long wedges still. And everyone's obviously talking about Bryson, and everyone's talking about, ball speed, blah, blah. But there's a lot to Augusta that we don't see from the TV. When you go there, and I know every media person talks about it, but the elevation change, 11 down to that 11th green, from the 10th tee down to the 11th green. I mean, honestly, if you put snow on it, you'd have the best sledge ride ever. You'd be like macking it by the time you got out. It's
crazy.
So quick.
You'd have to forgive me, Trotty, but you're saying that these boys are tinkering with their drivers and trying to get a little bit more out of it. As a sort of person that doesn't really know much about golf, these blokes are trying to get more out of their driver. Isn't Augusta a place where they pretty much all of them have already got enough? Doesn't seem like a place you can really overpower.
Yeah. Well, it becomes a different golf course, doesn't it? And I don't know if you listened to that Jordan Spieth podcast that he did with Colton Oast. But that was one conversation. Rory's had another one. I've been in a couple of conversations. And the players will reel off, well, hole 1, this. Hole 2 doesn't matter. Hole 3, I think it's par 3, right? And then they keep going. And then they talk about various holes. And there are certain holes, I think 9 was an example, 8 maybe as well, where it just changes the landscape entirely. And the only way I could say to talk about that is if you think about the club that you play at, and then all of a sudden I give you an extra 60 yards. You're going to figure it out. I mean, I saw the graphic about 13. He's going to hit it into the 14th fairway. And someone asked me about that the weekend. And I was like, yeah, he'll just hit it straight and then go over the trees on the corner and hit it into 14. And I got thinking about it and I was thinking, geez, the apex of that to get over those trees is going to have to be insane. Anyway, I then see the graphic that he's talking about. He's taking it 70 yards left off the tee of where everyone else is going to go. And he's just going to blitz this thing over it and into 14 down by the tee box. So
what if he hits that left though? Because if he gets that left, because those trees cut in really quite sharply, it seems. I don't know whether that's just the deception of the TV camera, but it looks like you've got to hit a high draw if you want to move the ball far enough round to the left. You can't start it left. You can't really hit a fade, for instance.
And this is why, though, it's not everyone is talking about him. Many people are giving it to him. This is why it's not a done deal, because to your point, if you hit it left, which, by the way, 206 mile an hour ball speed, if you're off by like an ant's pube, it's going to go so far left anyway. So it's going to be like Sam old hickory. It's going to go everywhere. So at the end of the day...
No more hickory jokes. No more hickory jokes on this podcast.
At the end of the day, you're right. And I think it's... But we're all looking forward to seeing it, right? I mean, it's going to be amazing. But in the previous weeks, though, and this is what people don't recognise, so Shriners in Vegas a few weeks ago, the range is long. It's a normal human range. He's been told, Bryson, you're going to stop hitting driver. And he's gone, the tour players are all lined up as they are. They put them between the string. He's gone back 25 yards into the back corner. They've cleared a section of the tour players for him to hit driver. He's still hit it into the storage units at the back. And they've gone, Bryson, we can't have you hitting driver on a range this week. I mean, and that's where we're at. And then you fast forward like another couple of weeks and the usual stuff is happening. Like Wolfie's had a 773 iron built because he's thinking about putting that in, and guys are looking for the draw club or they're looking for areas they're going to tweak. And I've had a couple of text messages off old favourites of mine that I love to work with, like Weir's text me, can we do some work on Monday? Obviously, I'm not there this week, but that is always fun. I always look, Woozy's not playing this year, but it was always something I'd look forward to be like, you meet up with Woosnam, you meet up with Weir, and then getting into the grounds itself and what that place is like. I mean, if you can think of the best club you've been to in terms of the manicured, in terms of the paintwork on the clubhouse, in terms of the wood chips in the flower bed, in terms of the flowers. I don't know what that looked like in November, but in April, it is pristine. And usually in April, even though I've been there a few years and I've been there when it rained and that, even when it rains or it's glum, it's still perfect. It's still amazing. And when it's sunny and it's the sunshine, there's not a pine needle out of place at that place. It's ridiculous.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that on the basis that Augusta National picked this exact week, within a few days of cancelling the initial tournament or whatever it was, they went straight away, we're going to do this mid-November, this is happening on this date, and it was locked in. They probably know the agronomy, they know what the flora looks like around, they know it's going to be just absolutely stunning. So it's just the nature of the place, isn't it? I mean, there's literally not a pine cone out of place, is there? In terms of like watching the event from an outsider looking in as a spectator, it would transcend nearly every other tournament on the planet. Do you see a shift when you're on the ground with the guys in terms of how they approach the week, how they behave, how they prep themselves, the way they go about it? Or does it just feel like sort of business as usual when you're down there?
You see so much excitement coming in. And I would talk about from the caddies. So a couple of good European lads who I've known over the years, just pumped about it. Obviously, the manufacturers get access to the caddy area, which is if you're on the range, hitting towards the end of the range, it's on the right. So you go and you spend most of your time there because you have to be invited onto the range. You can't just waltz onto the range and be like, all right, mate, how's it going? Don't work like that. You got to get the invite on to do the work because they keep the range clear. So that's one. The guys Augusta is so excited and welcoming to have people there. So the boiler suits are on the caddies. The food for the caddies is amazing. And the hospitality they have is unbelievable. The pre-packed sandwiches, I mean, it makes M&S look like, what we're doing here, we're in Aldi. I mean, the pre-packed sandwich is different. And I don't mind an M&S sandwich when I'm in the UK, but these sandwiches at Augusta are just different level. And the people are just so nice. And then you flip and you get into the clubhouse, because again, and it's only when I talk about it here that it even comes to light how fortunate I've actually been. And I casually go there like an idiot and don't take it into consideration. But the very first time I went, the guy from TaylorMade who runs, or we have a guy that looks after us at Augusta from TaylorMade, that's pretty much his whole gig the whole year, passes me the ticket. And he's from Liverpool, England, lived in America forever. And he says to me, here you go. And it's like, I didn't really give it any, I was just like, oh, thanks. It was my credentials. And he goes, I'm going to need that particular one back off you on Monday night. And I look down and it says trophy room or champions locker or whatever they call it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, cool. Just being a dick. You know, I'm just being a dick. I'm trying to be cool. This was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe even longer. And you realise what he's given you. And granted, you're only going to the champions locker to allocate soft goods for the week that will be the special head covers or the balls or whatever, because there's not a lot of work to do until you get in there and someone goes and plays the course. And there might be this year because the course will be set up differently. And there'll be things like hot melt heel and turn drivers over. Who knows what this year will be? But you realise that, and I was trying to be all cool and calm, and I go into that champions locker, and then you're like, no one comes in here. No one, this is rare. And the locker attendant realises that I'd never really been in there before. And he, at the time I would have been, I don't know, probably 30. And I think he realises that it's like the first time in there. So he sort of leaves me in there on my own. And you're not meant to have a look in the lockers. You're not meant to. But he knows full well it's like, I'm going to have a couple of minutes here. And obviously you're straight to a Faldo, fair dues, yeah, obviously. There's a few jackets in there. And you just go round. And as you start to walk, I remember walking out, going downstairs, and I know I've got to give back this pass. And then I see Arnold Palmer on a golf cart outside. I'd never really spoken to Arnold Palmer. And you are literally on cloud 379. And I'm like, I'm going to go up to Arnold Palmer. All right, Arnold, thanks for everything you've Mr. Palmer, everything you've done in the game. He must be looking at me thinking, who is this absolute knobhead? And you're like, oh. But I'm just like, I've got the old champions locker. You know what I mean? And it's like, off you go back to the golf cart. But there are things about it, and I kind of made that more of a manufacturer's answer. But the point is, the players, even from the guys that are new there and are so excited to be there, then you come into like Justin Rose, I've seen in the locker room. They can order their food in the locker room. The locker attendants know exactly what they like from previous year. And then you sort of get to the range, and Sandy Lyle always practices at the same place. Alathabal always hits balls at the same place. Langer, the machine that he is, always hits balls at the same place. And you sort of like stood there thinking, these guys, Watson always does his same thing. And it's just so cool and so much history. But there's a big divide now between younger guys coming in, like the Niall Horan, who's a bit involved there. Rory's obviously younger, more hip, more current, more relevant. There's guys like me and younger reps. Well, there's not many younger reps than me, but guys like me who are newer, last 5-10 years to the Augusta arena. And they're pivoting and they're adjusting, and they're like, the launch monitors are a real thing. And yeah, the trucks are there. And then there's the sheriff, local sheriff, who will allow you to get across the road, because there's a road where you go across the truck. And even he is excited about the role he's got. And that's what I actually think this year will be different for, because I know that we obviously, one of the guy drives the truck for TaylorMade is friends with the local sheriff. He's not working it. So there's going to be a lot of buzz that isn't going to be there. How will it be come the start of the tournament? I don't know. But it will be strange. It will be really strange.
You mentioned then that there's this excitement and everything changes, and you mentioned how everything's getting a little bit younger. What are the new guys, the rookies, doing? Like Colin Morikawa seems cool as a cucumber, and Wolfie's like water off a duck's back. How are they feeling about going into their first Masters?
I think Wolfie took a week off last week in Houston. I hung out with him a bit at Shriners, and it was going back to the start, Brucey, and what we were talking about with golf scores, handicaps, and being not a bad amateur. Wolfie is the epitome, I think, of how a golfer, and if someone listening to this is like a 3 handicap, feels like they should be +1, +2. Wolfie basically goes to the range, though, and like I would go to the range and grind it out. He went to the range, I'm stood there with him, he hits 2 8-irons, turns around to his caddy, says, can't hit it better than that. He hits 2 5-irons, turns around, I can't hit it better than that. Hits 15 wedges to different yardages, then hits another 15 and goes, I kind of figured out the elevation change, because we're in Vegas, which is a slight elevation and altitude change, so the ball spins and changes deviation. And then it's like Tuesday or Monday. He goes, yeah, got that. It was Tuesday. He'd been at the Kingdom the day before. He goes, I got that dialed in. And he goes, what are you doing this afternoon, Trotty? And I was like, well, working. And he sort of stood there going, what are we going to do this afternoon, to his caddy? And like, he's literally wrapping it up. He's been there about half an hour. Such is the confidence
so much
level.
swagger.
Yeah.
It's like when he turns up for the final round and says, who did he say it to? He goes, tell your wife I said hi, or something like that. When he rocked up, just like, he's just throwing shots around. You think this guy's in the final group of the US Open, hoodie on, cool as a cucumber. He's just absolutely...
He's amazing.
Ice cold, isn't he? Ice cold.
And then he goes to the putting green, and he did spend quite a bit of time on the putting green, to be fair. Which was partly my fault, because I said a few things. And that's the key to this job. Everyone thinks with my job, which, again, great to have people who don't know, I fit on the tour for TaylorMade. Everyone thinks it's all about how technically gifted you know about this shaft and that shaft and this frequency. And the trick, 9 out of 10 times, is to say nothing. And I said one thing about something about eye line or toe hang. And the poor guy, I kept him on the putting green for like 45 minutes to an hour. When it was one of those things where if I'd have said nothing, he'd have been gone into Vegas doing whatever he wanted. Now, obviously, Corona, it would have been a boring afternoon for him. But the point I'm trying to make is the confidence he's on going into this is sky high. Morikawa, Shadow Creek, then the week after, which is an unbelievable venue in Vegas. This hidden away place, it's connected to the Bellagio or whatever it is, or one of those big dog high roller casinos. And Morikawa is putting, changing putters, gets into a bigger mallet-style putter, back to his blade, orders a couple of blades. I get them built. We're going to send them to him. He says to me, which we know Cal from your group would never be able to do this, but here's his lesson. Morikawa says, don't send me the putters. I'm good. I've practiced all week. Don't need them. And I actually thought about your boy Cal. I'm like, Jesus Christ, he wouldn't struggle with that, wouldn't he? I mean, he'd be like
seven variations of them, just like a cocktail.
Yeah.
So.
But to your question, though, Tom, that is the discipline and that is the lesson for us all. If you are hitting it good on the range, stop hitting balls. You're hitting it good. If you have a game plan going into your club championship, your weekly medal, your member guest, whatever you're going into, if you have a game plan, stick to the damn game plan. Give yourself a chance. And I think if you can do all these things, which these kids who are so young are doing, the lesson's all there. There's a reason they're playing in Augusta and we're talking about it.
It'd be interesting to know where that level of self-confidence comes from, really. I mean, I think maybe the NCAA, the college sort of breeding ground, as it were, in the United States does a great job of producing people who have that state of mind. But then, parents a huge part as well. But to draw an analogy maybe with someone from the UK, I think Tyrrell seems to espouse that as well when you watch the way he goes about his business on tour. And I think there's probably a good argument to make that no one's playing better golf over the last few months than that guy. He's looks like a very strong pick for
if you look at the
Augusta.
Bruce, if you look at the Masters winners over the last 5 years, I think 3 times best approach stats have always won, and the 2 where it hasn't have been second and third. And Tyrrell is right up there in approach stats. His tee to green games, I mean, it's all over class, isn't it? There's hardly a weak point there. But tee to green in particular, the guy's, almost unstoppable. He's consistent, and he just doesn't seem phased either, even when he's kind of under the pump a bit. He's just super cool. He's just casually kind of ridden his way into the top 10 status now in the world. And you're thinking, I think a lot of people, particularly in the UK, will overlook him, probably for the simple fact that he's not Bryson, he's not American, or he's not got the glamour around him maybe that Matthew Wolff might have, or Morikawa. But he's there
again at Houston, isn't he?
Deadly dangerous, isn't it?
He's there, inside the top 10, I think, just quietly going about his business with a sort of 5 under, I think it was on the last day. But yeah, as you say, I mean, I think because he's not bombing the ball 400 yards through the air, people aren't really talking about him as much. But I think, he'd be in my picks for the week.
He's his own man, though. And that's the other thing. You look at Morikawa, you look at Wolfie, you look at Tyrrell, they're all their own guys. Wrong. They're their own guy, Jason Day. And again, I look back and I'd like to think if there's any young golfers out there listening to this, you have to take charge and control of what you can do. And there's so much in the mental side of the game. And I think that you truly don't get an understanding of it. Because to be Tyrrell Hatton, you have to be fiery. You have to be. And he is. A ball that we're seeing now, he's starting to get an understanding of what makes and allows him to be a great player. The caddy is experienced beyond belief. And I'm no doubt he steps in when Tyrrell is losing it and he's like, hey, listen, chill out. I mean, the exchange is probably a little bit more aggressive than that. But having somebody there that will tell you, especially when you're an A-plus golfer, you need that A-plus athlete at anything,
But he seems to channel it. So I almost see the opposite maybe in that sense, Trottie, because I almost think I've seen tournaments where he sort of blows a gasket, something goes wrong, and you can see the steams there, the red mist. But he almost channels that. Sorry. He almost channels that into better performances all of a sudden. He can bounce back by being super intense. I'm not saying it's good to watch. I don't think it's a great example for golfers, but it does seem to yield some results for him.
But I think that's because you and I are referencing more his success now. Remember, it's taken him a decade to get to this point.
Yeah, I bet there's a lot of clubs snapped, aren't there, along the fairways of junior competitions. I mean, can you imagine watching him at 18 or 19? I bet it was an absolute treat.
I met him. I worked with him at the St Andrews Open Championship that Louis Oosthuizen won. And the amateur rep brought him to me and said, hey, you need to work with this kid. And he was all TaylorMade, everything TaylorMade. And look, he was tiny, fraction bigger than me, scruffy looking kid, very amateurish. But when he hit it, I was like, this kid's a good player. Now, did I think he'd go on and win the Arnold Palmer and become a PGA Tour star? He's a good player, you know what I mean? But to go and do what he's done under the pump and beat someone like Leishman or whoever he took down, it's real deal. You're not beaten it's real deal. And again, it pivots nicely to this week's winners on the tour. And you look at Ortiz and who he's held off. Great effort, but I know he shot a super low round to win. I guess when momentum's going your way, but mentally you still have to do what we've touched upon, and you have to get out of your own way and believe that you can see yourself winning. Carlos Ortiz saw himself winning a big tournament. He's held off Dustin Hideki. I mean, Jesus, well done. Tyrrell Hatton saw all this happening. He saw it happening. He saw it happening when I've stood there and thought, okay, it's raining and I'm fitting this kid in waterproofs and he's hitting it with 165 ball speed. What's going on? Yeah, every club's out the middle, but there's a big truck there. Can we at least get out the rain? He wanted to stay out there and have me fit him for golf clubs. And, you know, it's what these guys have. And I think it's to do with the parents. I think it's to do with always being told that you can achieve, that you can go as far as you want. And the handicap system and the whole conversation we had earlier about scratch being a goal. Scratch was a goal for me. Why are you setting something like that? It should be unlimited goals. And that's where golf lends itself. A par is a limit, right? And I watched this junior thing the other day, and it was a US kids documentary, and it wasn't particularly good for kids to watch. And this little girl there, she's 7 or 8, and she's explaining birdie, par, eagle. And she's like, well, par is what you should get. No, it's not. That's completely the same attitude of, well, let's get to scratch. We put this big thing on scratch. We put this big thing on par. It's complete BS. And the game of golf naturally does it. We put this big thing on. Your ball speed should be this. Therefore, you play this way at Augusta. Bryson has just gone, no, that's not in my agenda at all. Whether he wins or doesn't win, he is going to change golf, which is why it's fantastic. And again, I listened to PGA Tour Radio the other day here, and Nick Price is out there, and they're talking about what they can do to make golf tougher at the distance. And he actually made some great points. And he's like, you can't change where we've gone. The drivers are where they are. The ball speed is where it is. But you can make a golf course at 370 tighter. So if you are going to hit it 370, you will be rewarded for hitting it 370, but it's tighter. I kind of thought that was a fair point. Then they went on to talk, which would be interesting to get your viewpoint, about St. Andrews. And they were talking like, we're going to see 60 broken at St. Andrews, especially the way Bryson's hitting it, because he's going to drive it on X amount of greens hitting it that far. And I got thinking about it, and I'm like, well, that's the idea of golf, and the idea of, as we get better, you know, cricket scores get better, soccer games get quicker, golf scores ice hockey gets quicker, faster. All these things need to evolve. And I think that, what do we do? I mean, it's a huge question, but I think things need to evolve. I think it's just natural. You've got to let it happen.
Yeah, I think I'm not entirely convinced on where I stand with the whole rollback debate, because I do definitely think there's a legitimate concern about having to build courses that are 8,000 yards long. I think Lou Stagner's done some work on that and basically says if you wanted to have courses today play the same as they were doing 50 years ago, you need to be somewhere around the 8,000 mark, which I just don't think, you know, partly from an environmental perspective, but also from a kind of, you know, preserving some of the great courses. I don't think 8,000's really feasible. So I would maybe be open to like some sort of equipment rollback in that sense. But something that I feel like, and you touched on it earlier actually, Trotty, something I feel like isn't really getting talked about is just the technical differences in hitting a finesse wedge shot versus hitting a driver 400 yards through the air. And, you know, you've worked a bit with Dane Dahlquist, if I'm not mistaken, who's obviously, you know, widely acknowledged as one of the kind of best golf instructors in the game today, and right at the sort of cutting edge of golf instruction. And I'd be interested to hear what he kind of thinks on the distance debate, because, you know, there's a good argument that people like McIlroy, who, you know, the last 10 years, Rory McIlroy, I think without doubt, has been regarded as the best driver of the ball on the PGA Tour. And, you know, he gets a little bit underplaying from the inside, maybe a bit stuck, some people would say, when he hits his drives. And as a result, you know, he's just hitting these high knuckle balls with a bit of draw and stacks up really well driving it, and also hitting long clubs well. But wedge play wise, he, you know, people know that his wedge play lets him down. It's something that Bryson's also struggled with, is hitting those wedge shots, hitting sort of less than full wedge shots, pitches, different flights, different spins, etc. And I just think there may actually be a technical limit to how well you can coordinate hitting a driver 400 yards through the air, and then also going and doing the distance control at the other end of the spectrum.
I think there's an element, though. If you remember, let's keep this in something we can all relate to. golf. Let's just where are we? Obviously. So at the end of the day, I quite like putting. So I would find myself practicing putting. Jason Day likes to putt. He practices putting. Rory clearly likes to smash driver. He hits a lot of drivers. I was with Rory a few weeks ago, and I'm not going to mention the player, someone who I respect, whose short game I think is money. And Rory didn't really give it much at all. He said to me, "Who do you like this week?" I don't know why he said it. Must have been bored, I guess. He said, "Who do you like this week?" And I mentioned a couple of obvious ones, and then I said, "Yeah, I actually like so-and-so." And he's like, "Yeah," he just sort of poo-pooed it. And it's but there's elements of that guy's game that he doesn't have, and I think he doesn't enjoy working on it. So I think that then puts you where you're at. So you have people that excel in different categories, because it's human nature. You like to do what you're good at, right? I mean, I see it with my kids all the time. Then when it comes back to golf, you're going to have to end up with two different techniques, one for the short play and one for the long play. And the person that masters that will obviously be a more complete player. And then in the third part of that question, I'm going to answer with a question. Why can't we just have clubs for the pros? I have no issue with it. I don't want to play an 8,000-yard golf course, to be honest with you. But granted,
you don't want to play a 6,000-yard golf course, do you?
I don't. I ain't got time. I ain't got time, boys. But if you go back and you stand there, like I've been beaten up by golf courses all through when I wanted to be. You go and play Hoylake with a 45 mile an hour wind. It's too hard.
It's too hard off the back. So it was ludicrous.
But the point is, it's like, I think you want that when you're under the age of 24, 25, and that's fine. But then you get beyond that, and it's like a bit of you just wants to kind of enjoy it. And you know, I think we need to get to the point where we're like, look, pros, here's your equipment and go for it. And then AMS, and that will preserve St Andrews. It will. And then the AMS is like, right, boys, have at it. Here's your club with a larger CC, with your CORs and your MOIs and your movable weights and your da-da-da-da-da, and go for it. You know what I mean?
That's actually why the ladies' game is quite interesting, because they're able to host it at venues that are actually interesting. You can go and look at Golden Age golf courses, like the ladies played at Aronimink, didn't they? Now, they could never actually have an event at Aronimink, I don't think, because of the distance. Whereas,
there's BMW there.
Yeah,
a couple of years ago.
Okay, well, maybe a bad example then, Bruce. But you get the point I'm raising, and I think the Rose Ladies series in the UK, no, fair challenge. I mean, just coming in with some stuff off the left hip, you know, just firing randomly. Yeah. But I don't know, and that's why Augusta, for what is a pretty modest length golf course, ultimately still provides a pretty good test and invariably produces a pretty rounded winner, I think. So.
There's a flip side, though, to that argument out the gate, because every year that I spend at the photo shoot, last year, the new person who was there, who I got to meet and talk to, Maria Farsi, and what a golf swing. Great girl, but what a golf swing. And we got talking about LPGA Tour, and it kind of shackles Maria a little bit, because she can't hit it. She can't capitalize on her length off the tee. And I'm a little bit like, LPGA Tour would be an amazing product if Maria started dominating. It would be, because she's hip, she's cool, she's fun, she's just everything that LPGA needs. And you're in a situation where they're playing golf courses that shackle that. So is that right as well? Then you could argue, well, fair enough, but Maria needs to get better at this, and this in order to excel on those golf courses. So, yeah, I guess there's 2-3 ways of looking at all of it, right?
Something I'd love to get your take on, though, Trottie, actually, is, as you know, 3 American guys who've played a little bit of golf. 3 UK guys who've played a little bit of golf in the States, but not that much. I mean, we obviously hear a lot about the difference between the European courses, or the courses that the European Tour play on, rather, and the courses that host PGA Tour events. And obviously, there was those kind of infamous remarks by McIlroy a couple of years ago at the Dunhill, I think, where he said that the setups in the United States are a lot more challenging, and obviously the best players in the world play there. There's more world ranking points on offer. From what you've seen in the UK when you grew up here playing so much golf, and how much work you've done out in the States, do you think that like PGA Tour courses maybe do encourage people to kind of chase after hitting the ball further and distance a bit more than courses on the European Tour? Is there much of a difference that you see in terms of setup that is maybe pushing the game down this line?
Night and day. You need to be better. You need to be longer off the tee. You need to hit it higher. You need to not be so concerned about shaping your ball. Playing in the wind is not a factor. Doesn't really. Right. It doesn't. It's hard. I look back to my time on the European Tour. I remember one year we set out, and this includes the Middle East, and it didn't stop raining until we got to. I don't think we did an event without rain until June, and that was the Middle East as well. Right. And that was Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Qatar. It rained in all three of them, and then we went on from there. It rained every week, and then the wind every week on the range is horrific. Whereas it's never windy on a PGA Tour event, ever. And if it is, which is very rare, no one goes out. And it's, again, I played golf at the weekend here. It was raining and windy.
Back to your 6 birdies again, are we on now? Is this the 6 birdies coming home?
No one's on a golf course, mate. No one's on a golf course.
It's mental. And it's crazy.
But that's California, so it's a bit different. But the point is that the PGA Tour, the other thing, I don't know if I touched on this with you guys before, but the toe of a lob wedge and sand iron has bounce on the toe. There's no point in even lifting it up because we're not even on visual here. But the toe has bounce there. I always thought, well, why would you have bounce out there? But playing in the different grasses round here requires you to use every part of the sole of that lob wedge or sand iron. In Europe, on links golf courses, you don't need to do that at all. And you can fudge chips and just play one method, hands forward, ball back, leading edge, and you can do that all day until the cows come home, whether you're playing in a parkland golf course in the middle of the country or whether you're at a coastal destination. You have one chipping method. Just not the way in America. And that's why people touched on it before, Mike Weir or other great Mickelson, amazing chippers of the golf ball. Why are they so good? Because they have the ability to maneuver the handle, change the grip slightly, and all of a sudden produce a shot that's leveraging a different part of the bounce that us as Europeans didn't even think was a thing. Is that a thing? Oh, it's a thing. And I think that you have to be a far more rounded player. So I walked some holes last week with Lowry, get on well with Shane, nice guy. And he plays every chip shot. What looked like it was Bermuda grass, plays them all the same. But you're talking about an anomaly. You're talking about one out of 156 every week who plays it that way. Very European style.
Exactly, and that's why he's grown up playing his golf, right? So that's
But shapes it both ways as well, which I guess is maybe a little uncharacteristic for a lot of PGA Tour players. I probably look at DJ and Brooks in particular, who just seem to hit fade all the time. Even if the wind's off the left, even if they've got a left-hand pin, they're just going to hit that little kind of fade most of the way around, aren't they? So it's interesting to see how those differences play out. What about the green sites in the US? Do you think are they generally a bit bigger and a bit flatter, or again, is that maybe I'm generalizing too much?
I'd say more undulating and significantly quicker, quicker, with way more pin placement options. And they'll trick them up, and then there's a lot of differences. But if you looked at the Champions Tour this week, which I don't know, it's always interesting to see it. Broadhurst pommeling it down the stretch. I didn't actually see who won, but Broadhurst was up there doing the business, hitting different flights than anyone else, and it was windy, really windy. So there's things to be the complete golfer, and it's interesting to look at. But yeah, for the most part, I think it breeds different golfers who have the ability to shoot lower scores in the United States because the mentality is go, 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 and second place, who cares sort of thing.
Yeah, everything's in your favour. Looking ahead to the Masters then, and just actually segueing nicely from that discussion there about different bounces and short game methods around the greens. Are you hearing much in terms of how players are changing their setups this week with different ground conditions in Augusta and different bounces and grinds in light of the turf being slightly different to what it would be in April?
I mean, obviously recording this podcast, it's Monday morning of Augusta. So the fun is will come in this afternoon and tomorrow with different wedge setups required over the coming few days. To this point, it's been long iron adjustments. It's been play around with longer length drivers, realise that maybe it's not going to work, and let's go from there. That's where we're at. And I think the true fun of the preparation gets going from today onwards. But because you remember, a lot of players are coming in from Houston because they wanted to taste competition rather than have a week off. Like, that's a big thing for major preparation. Players will sometimes stay 2-3 weeks on a spin just to be ready for that second tournament week. Yeah. And you could say Hideki's peaked too soon, couldn't you, really? And that's where the Dustin thing is fantastic, because Dustin has had a week off, the week of Shadow, the place in LA, where he would have gone. But what people don't understand, that would have been quite a full-on week for Dustin, because he would have had his family there. It's his in-laws live on the golf course. That would have been a big week. And really, which is why he's a great dark horse for this, not really a dark horse, but you take that week and you take it out of his schedule. He spent that week in a hotel room in Vegas recovering from COVID, but the energy he saved mentally by not having to entertain all week is massive. And then you go and see it, golf course where I didn't see much of him during the practice days of Houston, and then he goes and does the business.
We touched about Rory a few times during the podcast so far. Obviously, he's got his chance at infamy this week. Do you think, Trottie, having 2 Masters within 6 months is going to take the pressure off Rory a little bit?
No. I think he's got... It depends how you look at it. Rory McIlroy is not looking at it the way I'm going to describe this. I'm going to describe it as the common man, which is realistically Rory, to get this Grand Slam, only really has 13 more chances maybe. Let's say the game really moves on quickly. He's probably going to have maybe 7 chances, because that'll take him through to like 35, 36. Now, maybe you could squeeze a win. So, it's more like 13 chances. It's not many chances. To have 2 of them on top of each other, I don't really think makes much of a difference. The thing that makes a difference is if he gets there November and all of a sudden the big hitters do have a significant advantage, then perhaps that changes things. I think the fact that it's in November changes things. The fact that there's no fans potentially plays into his favour. He's still going to have to do all the yahoo with the media, but this is going to be... The tension is not going to be there, is it? On that Sunday that you have with the Raw. They all talk about it in interviews. The Raws, the crowds, the woo-has around the trees. You're not going to have any of that. So, I think he has a good chance of winning this. I really do.
It's amazing when you hear us talking about Rory, I think. The way people talk about Rory and his golf is just like no one else out there on tour, in my opinion. Maybe Tiger's probably a close run in terms of comparison. But everyone wants to see him do it, and it's like everyone watches Rory and just immediately expects him to have this other gear that he can step into, where it's like he should be shooting 59 every time he sets foot on the first tee. I mean, I think all 4 of us sit here and think, God, wouldn't it be great if Rory coming down the back 9 Sunday, he's got a good duel going with someone. It's tit for tat, and he ends up doing it. But it does seem like
he doesn't really do that, though, does he?
No,
I can't remember McIlroy winning a duel with someone on the back 9, because that's not to say he's a good player, but in fact, the opposite, in that he just tends to just whitewash the field and lap them. Like he did in Canada a couple of years ago, or like he did at Congressional when he won in 2011, or Kiowa in 2012. He gets on a run and he just goes so far ahead of everyone that he kind of ends up winning by 6, 7, 8, 9 shots.
Or he does a Port Russian shoots, 80 or something, and it's like where you are straight away, day 1, day 2. Whereas Tiger always he was always like 2nd or 3rd page on the leaderboard on day 1, and then just sort of played his way into kind of contention throughout the tournament, I found.
That's an interesting stat, actually. Yeah, Tiger's never led the Masters after round 1.
Which is incredible. Well,
insane, isn't it?
So there's numbers around it. So I just think everyone wants to see Rory do so well at the Masters. Everyone would like to see him pick up the career Grand Slam, I think, with the exception of probably a few players out there. who are obviously playing against him and want the win for themselves. But time will tell.
But those low scores are a mental state, and it's getting yourself into a mental state. And that's my point, is that with no fans, maybe that's why, to Tom's original question, this November tournament could be really advantageous for him. It truly could. Much like the PGA for Colin Morikawa was advantageous for him. It's basically a college event. And Casey even said it, like he's missing not having fans. I think if there'd been fans, Casey would have been in a really good spot there. 41, 42 years old, can deal with that, hitting it well, playing well. So, just to touch on that Casey one, we touched on that driver. Casey's had a new driver since then, apparently. That driver stopped working for him. Really? Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. Second in the PGA.
I went in really deep on him at the PGA after that, by the way, Trotty. I should thank you for that, because I lost a lot of money and I was itching to see him win the PGA at Harding Park.
Yeah, I know. But, hey, it's going to be interesting. We're all going to enjoy it, like all the other fans out there. I do miss. It's not going to be the same vibe. But look, with everything that's going on, we're in a great spot. Golf's in a great spot. Golf business is in a great spot. We're touching on subjects that I know the teachers are doing well. You touch on Dana. I know he's here, there, and everywhere. I've seen Dana a little bit. The tour coaches are busy. It's great. Golf courses are busy. I think it's going to be a great weekend. The fact that it's Tom's birthday, it makes it even better. So it'll be good viewing, and it will be interesting to follow up and listen to how you guys summarise the event after you see who's the other side and who's won. Hopefully Hideki, and then I look like I actually know what I'm on about.
Okay, so aside from Hideki, Trotty, who are your two other picks? And they can be as sort of out there and as hopeful as you wish. Who would be two?
Let's throw it left field. Why don't you not name a TaylorMade player?
Shane Lowry.
Okay, wow.
Okay.
That is an enormous shout.
Yeah.
I love the guy. It's a huge shout. Okay. Anyone else?
I'm going for sleepers. So this is people that are, wanting to put something on and get something back. So I'm having Hideki. You're not taking that off me. I'm having Shane Lowry. And then I'm having Tyrrell as well. I'm going with you on Tyrrell. Because I'm not allowed to pick a TaylorMade player, you know what I mean? Yeah. Now, if I'm allowed to pick TaylorMade players, it's different.
Mills, birthday picks, what are you thinking?
I like Tyrrell. I do like Tyrrell for this one. I think he's got a great approach play, and he's long enough off the tee to be able to put himself in the right spots. Yeah, I like Tyrrell. And I've got to be honest, biased, I know. I like Casey.
Okay.
And one of my picks.
Nice and original, imaginative solutions here.
Anyone else? The armor in there as well, Tom?
No, I'm going to be non-original with this one. I like Brooks. He hasn't won it yet. I like Brooks for this. I think he's trending. He played well in the last round at Houston. I think I like Brooks for this.
Okay, I'll give you mine too quickly. Patrick Reed, blisteringly good short game, which is key around there. And Scotty Scheffler as well. Absolute baller.
Oh, rookie.
Huge swagger. And I think he can go. Okay. He can go deep.
He didn't play well last week, though.
Shit.
I'm going to go with. And just like that, Sam's plan has unravelled. The bet's come off. He's done.
Reed's again.
Add Leishman in April. Add Leishman. I'm
going to go with Patrick Cantley, who got to 12 under last year and was the sort of early pace setter. Won a couple of weeks ago, so I think he's coming into form. And just seems like he's built for the big stage. I'm also going to go with Lee Westwood, just a bit of a long shot pick, but he's got to make amends. He's got to make amends. He's got to make amends. It's not as outrageous as my third pick. He's got to make amends for not quite getting it done in 2010 when Mickelson broke his heart. So I reckon Lee. Lee's going to get it done. And if not, I think it's going to be Return of the King. He's going to put paid to all those horrible memories of dunking it in the water on the 12th last year, and Molinari's going to break back into the top 50 in the world.
The most outrageous picks I've ever heard in my life.
Molinari's going to go from 85th in the world back inside the top 20, and all's going to be right.
the last time Lee Westwood came close at the Masters, I think the iPhone had just been released. And to be fair, as much as I like Molinari again and had a fantastic rise, it did seem like it was a fleeting bit of success. But there was me thinking, as a student of the game like yourself, Bruce, was going to come in here with some informed views on winner.
Voting with my heart, not my head here.
How were we all not allowed to pick TaylorMade players? I mean, how can you not mention Dustin Johnson?
Well, you can't pick an obvious one, can you? It's like going, who do you fancy? Oh, Bryson, DJ. Yeah, I mean, they've got half a chance, haven't they? I mean, not surprisingly, the best players in the world playing the best golf right now. So we've got to go left
Liam
field.
Francesco, heard it here first.
You know, granted, if you give me a betting slip for the same money back, I'm probably going to take Bryson or DJ over Scotty Scheffler, even given the fact he played pony last week, but we shall see.
I like Scheffler. I think your picks were good. Reed is a great shout. Reed is a phenomenal shout. That could be good. Get it done.
Funnily enough, we had Lucas Michel on the pod before the Masters, before it was going to happen in April, and I'd said Leishman, and these boys had torn me to shreds. And Lucas was like, "No, your man back in Leishman. That's a good bet."
He's not playing well, is he?
No, he's not going to do it now. What a difference 6 months makes.
Yeah, exactly. Great stuff.
Cool.
But my birthday is going to be spent sitting in front of the fire and watching the Masters. And even though we've had all of our picks, we're all going to watch Jordan Spieth roll in and take the money. So, as always, guys,
Spieth.
As always, if you have any questions or any comments, please do get in touch. And until then, we will speak to you next time.
Cheers, boys.
This.